We're here today at the Air Mobility Command Museum in Dover, Delaware. And you may recognize this place from other videos that we've done, specifically the one about Sergeant Joe Toy. But today we're going to take a look at the museum, see what they have to offer here, and see what we can learn about all of these aircraft and a lot of the operations here in Dover and across the world. When you first walk in the hangar, you come across this gate guard. Simulation. One of the first gate shacks, recreation of one of the first gate shacks they built here in Dover for World War II. So when you first come in the museum, you turn right. First thing I see is a CG-4A glider. This particular glider was never removed from its crates, so the museum set it up as a simulation of what a glider would have looked like for World War II. So this would have been towed behind a C-47, which they also have here. And what's interesting to me is that apparently glider pilots did not have to be officers. They could be enlisted. They could wear glasses. The troops on board never jumped from this plane, so either you crashed or you landed and unloaded. So they were not trained as paratroopers, even though they were in the sky right behind the C-47, which would have been loaded with paratroopers. Very interesting. What a nice little touch on the glider display is the ruts in the ground, making it look as though the glider just landed here in the museum. And they also have a B-17 here. This one's called the Sleepy Time Gal. And right above the B-17 is an L-2M Grasshopper. Now that is a small plane. I am not sure I would have wanted to fly that thing in a combat zone. And they also have on display here a Norden bomb sight. Obviously very well known. Also on the other side of the B-17, they've got examples of the bombs that this airplane would have carried, could have carried. Here's where the tail gunner would have been in the B-17. And if you think that's crazy, take a look at the ball turret. There's another angle of the B-17 with the looking through the bomb doors, the bomb bay doors.
It's like forget.
And they also have an M1A1 howitzer on display here. This would have been dropped in several crates. Most of it would have been in crates. Some of it was just pushed out of the aircraft, and then the soldiers would reassemble it. And here's the M582 para crate that the howitzer would have been packed into. Would have been 5 of these, actually. So this is the C-47 Turf and Sport Special. We've shown this on other videos, and this one saw action on D-Day, dropping paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne just north of Sommières-Iglesias. Also participated in Operation Market Garden and Operation Varsity and the Berlin Airlift.
So they were ordered to be on all Allied aircraft right before the D-Day invasion. It was ordered by General Eisenhower. So regardless of whether it was a C-47 transport, C-17, or P-47, all aircraft participating in D-Day had those black and white stripes. And essentially they were stripes to identify the aircraft as a friendly aircraft. And that originated about a year prior to D-Day. During Operation Husky, which was the amphibious and airborne invasion of the island of Sicily in the Mediterranean, during the course of that operation, one evening for a resupply mission, a group of planes happened to be C-47s flying over the Allied fleet at night. They were mistaken for German aircraft, and a number of aircraft was shot down. So it was truly a friendly fire incident. So there were over 200 casualties in that episode. In order to avoid that, General Eisenhower ordered all the aircraft to have those black and white stripes. So that's the history of the stripes on the aircraft. So anytime you see an aircraft, whether it's in a book or just depicted on television, if it's got those black and white stripes, it is an aircraft that would have been participating in D-Day. So when you go on a board, just watch your step, watch your head, it's fairly low. The aircraft is a pretty steep incline, so be careful walking inside the aircraft. There's some black treads on the floor to help you balance, but feel free to have a seat, and I'll tell you more about the aircraft.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's going to creak a lot too, but it's just old. The aircraft's been restored to what it looked like on D-Day. The C-47 was actually a derivative of a civilian aircraft, a DC-3. So this would have been an airliner in the 1930s. Now a little different configuration on the interior, but the same model. Again, it developed into a military transport. So this aircraft was actually built in 1942. The C-47 not only served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. I think this aircraft actually retired in the 1960s. The last C-47 or DC-3 retired from the Air Force, I believe, in the early 1970s. So the aircraft was kind of a workhorse of airlift in the Second World War. Over 12,000 of these, over 10,000 of these were built for the U.S. military. It was also used by the British. The U.S. called it the Skytrain, the British called it the Dakota, same aircraft. The aircraft could be configured to whatever the mission called for, like Air Force aircraft today. So the seats you're sitting in are folded up. They can be folded down like these seats. These seats can be, of course, folded up. If they're in a folded up position, you can about 28 troops in here. Folded down, you could put cargo in here. You can carry small vehicles. The door that we came in is actually the cargo door. This right here is the jump door. The whole door section comes out and you can put small vehicles in here. So on the outside of the aircraft, we have on display a small bulldozer, a small tractor that were designed to fit inside a C-47. But you put a Jeep in here or a piece of artillery, again, or cargo. It's most famously known for, oh, one more thing, it can be also designed for medical evacuation as well. So we have an example of a litter set up inside the aircraft. You can actually put a dozen litters between the two sides of the aircraft to carry out wounded. These bags contain the different straps and stuff for the litters themselves. The aircraft is famously known for dropping paratroopers, right? So in that configuration, it would carry probably around 19 or 20 paratroopers. On D-Day, our aircraft actually dropped 17 paratroopers. As I mentioned, dropped them over St. Mary Glees on D-Day. So, in carrying paratroopers, the paratroopers would be in the seats, of course. This door would be physically removed. This door would have been closed because that would have been the cargo door. As the aircraft is approaching the drop zone, the pilot would yell back, have the paratrooper stand up and hook up. What we have here is something called a static line. This is a sample of the material, the nylon material that was used, but this in reality is about 12 or 14 feet long. All right. So this was actually attached to the parachutes. The paratroopers would hook this up to this anchor line. This would be hooked up to their parachutes. The parachuters would be standing. They'd be checking each other out to make sure all their equipment was secure. As they approached the drop zone, the red light would come on. The paratroopers would bunch up down here in a line. When the green light came on, they're out the door. All right. So when they jumped out the door, this actually pulled the parachute out of their pack. All right. The reason it was so long is that you didn't want the parachute to deploy as immediately went out the door, because if it did, you could get caught on the tail of the aircraft. So this would allow the paratrooper to actually drop below the aircraft before the parachute deployed. They would have been out of this aircraft fairly quickly. Aircraft would have been flying ideally about 600 feet in the air, going about 100 miles an hour. Depending on weather, depending on ground opposition or air opposition, they may be going a little faster, a little slower, a little higher, a little lower. But the idea is to get out as quickly as possible so they land together. So that's how that worked as well.
Right.
So you are welcome to walk up to the cockpit.
Up in the cockpit here. Very interesting.
In addition to doing the research on the aircraft, we were able to track down some of the people who served on the aircraft. So these two gentlemen actually came back for the dedication when we started the aircraft. These two gentlemen actually jumped out of the aircraft on D-Day. So they came back, sat in their seats in the aircraft. This aircraft was not restored to flying condition, but at the time, there was another C-47 here as part of the dedication that was here in flying condition. So they gave these guys a ride in a C-47. When they came back down and landed, and asked them, did you enjoy your trip? They said yes, but we've never landed in one before because they're always jumping out of them. So they definitely had their sense of humor. That was the original flight manifest from D-Day. I can't read anything right on it, but that was the manifest. That is Mr. Wood. This is the aircraft, wartime photo of the aircraft. You can see up in the upper left-hand corner is Different Support Special. Aircraft configured with carrying wounded, our aircraft. This is our aircraft in flight. And this is our aircraft being brought to our museum for restoration. Come from Pennsylvania. And then this is what the aircraft looked like when we got it. So very heavily damaged. It was actually used by the Air Force up into the 60s.
Also in the museum here, they've got a display of rations, which is always interesting. K rations right here. Down here, some humanitarian aid rations that could be dropped to, dropped or taken to feed a lot of people at once. Now, there's one that's vegetarian. I know some people who would appreciate that. Here's something else I did not know. So there was a P-38 Lightning. There's a German P-38 pistol, which was a 9mm, and also another P-38, which was the P-38 can opener. Some people said that was the most valuable P-38 to open those sea rations. Very interesting. Got some glider pilot badge and a glider badge here on display, along with a flare gun, an M5 flak helmet, and a tow rope. So as we kind of wrap up our visit to the museum here, there's a whole lot more outside that you can see. But what really strikes me about being out here is the size. Now, you know, we've all seen airplanes before, we've been around, but just being here on the ground next to these giants, it's a pretty impressive experience. So walking out here amongst all of these aircraft, it's really amazing to kind of experience the scale of all of them. But when we're talking about size, the big daddy of them all is right in front of me. This is the C-5 Galaxy, and this is just a monster. It's probably hard to even see the scope of this from here on the phone, but it is just huge. Well, this is interesting. Here we have a Minuteman missile, which by itself is just huge. But apparently they did a test where they launched this missile, or one like this, from the C-5 Galaxy. Very interesting. This is the inside of the C-5 Galaxy. Just cavernous. Oh man, they've got a bunch of these stair cars here. And if you are, like me, a fan of the show Arrested Development, then you know how much I want to jump in that and drive that stair car around. Here's something I've never seen. A dog tagging machine. So there you go. That was a little bit of the museum here at Dover Air Force Base. I wasn't able to show you probably even half of what they have here. So this is a great place to check out. The parking is free. The admission is free. So if you're in the area, come check it out. Have a great day, everybody.